Hello and welcome to South Asia Today, a show that provides you the glimpses of South Asia. I'm your host Yeshi. Here are the headlines. Reconstruction drive in Nepal's Gorkha district provide residence to vulnerable people. Japan's Mitla introduces Hello Baby program to reduce maternal mortality rate. And 40 days of harsh winter period Chillai Kala begins in Srinagar. Let's begin the show. The joint endeavours of the Indian government and the United Nations have bore fruits as over 50,000 households have been re-established in the districts of Gorkha and Nuwakot, where thousands were rendered homeless after the massive 2015 earthquake. The Government of India, which has undertaken nearly 200 projects in line of $1 billion support it pledged post-earthquake, has reiterated that its commitments towards the holistic development of its time-tested ally will remain intact in the future too. Have a look.
Dal Bahadur Bishwakarma lost his vision permanently after a wild bull attacked him about a decade ago. And as if this wasn't tragic enough, he had to live without a roof for over half a decade after the devastating 2015 Nepal earthquake, which took away his home too. It is only now, after the combined efforts of the United Nations Development Programme or UNDP and the Government of India, that he has concrete walls around to give him a homely feeling. Dal Bahadur recollects how hard his life has been, which would become even more miserable during monsoons and winters when the rickety shelters were just not enough to resist the perils of weather. Even blood relations abandoned him in the crisis.
हामी यही डाँडा बस्थ्यौं यही डाँडामा यही माथि डाँडामा थियो भाइको जग्गा त्यही बसिरहेको थियौं भाइले बेच्यो अनि दिएन अनि नदिएपछि अनि यहाँ झरे
Dal Bahadur is one of the first groups of families that have been relocated in the Palungtar municipality of Gorkha, which was the epicenter of 7.8 magnitude quake. The reconstruction drive initiated with the Government of India with UNDP's consultation has ended years of the daily struggle for thousands of households in Gorkha and Nuwakot that were most affected by the devastating earthquake.
We have just completed our reconstruction program here in Nepal in collaboration with the Government of India. Their support has been generous. I think it has been transformational for certainly for UNDP as a partner to India. And thanks to the support from India, we have been able to rebuild 27,000 private houses in the Gorkha region. There's many things that stand out about this program, aside from the physical reconstruction of the 27,000 houses. We have rebuilt houses. We've also built capacities, though, among the men and the women who are the beneficiaries from this program. They have learned themselves through the program, through collaboration, the socio-technical support we provided. They have learned and have had a stake and a say on the reconstruction itself.
The Indian government had committed $1 billion for the reconstruction of Nepal in form of grants and a line of credit. $150 million were allocated for the reconstruction in the housing sector, $100 million as a grant and $50 million in the form of a line of credit. It has helped in the construction of 50,000 houses in the Gorkha and Nuwakot districts of Nepal. The Government of India has appointed UNDP and United Nations Office for Project Services or UNOPS as socio-technical facilitation consultants for Gorkha and Nuwakot district in 2018. New Delhi, a time-tested partner of Nepal, is currently working on over 200 projects in Nepal to provide it with a holistic makeover.
we're very happy that the housing sector, which was a priority sector, has been completed under this reconstruction assistance. We have managed to complete this and marked the completion last month, and we've built 50,000 houses in Gorkha and Nuwakot. With the help of UNDP and UNOPS, we were able to also impart skills and build capacities of the beneficiaries in these districts, which we hope will make it more sustainable in terms of the kind of opportunities that are available for the local population there.
Nepal earthquake of 2015, also called the Gorkha earthquake, struck the region on April 25, 2015. About 9,000 people were killed. Many thousands more were injured, and more than 600,000 structures across different towns were either damaged or completely destroyed. The international community had then pledged coordinated support for its reconstruction. But it is only now with India and the UN working in tandem that those who were hit really hard in 2015 are gradually witnessing a return of normalcy in their lives.
Moving on, the United Nations is proposing to pay nearly $6 million for protection in Afghanistan to the Taliban-run Interior Ministry personnel. The United States too has announced this week that it will be issuing 3 special licenses to ensure that some international aid could flow to Afghanistan. The decision comes in the wake of failing economic situation in the country post-Taliban seizure of power, which has severely affected the lives of common Afghans and has pushed over half of the country towards extreme poverty.
The United States would authorize some international transactions with the Taliban so that the aid to the war-torn country that has stopped nearly entirely could continue. With millions in Afghanistan facing the risk of famine, President Joe Biden has taken steps to let more aid into the country. The Treasury Department announced this week that it was issuing 3 new licenses, allowing certain officials and NGOs to bypass sanctions and work with Taliban leaders. The decision came a day after the United Nations proposed to pay nearly $6 million for protection in Afghanistan to the Taliban-run interior military personnel. Earlier, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken had acknowledged the growing hardships in the country and had hinted at taking some action in the direction of improving the situation in Afghanistan.
We've issued multiple now general licenses to make sure that other countries, institutions, can feel free to move forward with their assistance and not be concerned about the application or implementation of sanctions against them.
It has been nearly 4.5 months since the Taliban swept to power in Afghanistan, ousting Ashraf Ghani's West-backed government. However, the situation, which many Afghans believed would improve, has only worsened. The feeling of fear has eased out, but not completely, as the Kalashnikov-wielding insurgents, in their ragtag mix of loose traditional clothing and combat jackets, have been replaced by uniformed security forces. But fears of revenge against anyone associated with the former government remain, and there are concerns over what will happen to women and to girls who are still largely excluded from high school education. While this is the reality at ground, Taliban blame American propaganda for tarnishing their image. There are locals who are optimistic under the Taliban too, but are fearful of the economics that will unfold in their rule.
لیاز امنیت یا از لیازی که فساد کم شده از این راضی هستیم، اما از این لیازی که مردم ها پریشان است، اقتصادشان به اصطلاح ضعیف است، در این روزها به مشکلات دست و پنجه نرم میکند. مامورین دولت معاش ندارند، 2 ماه 3 ماه میشه، و کسایی که کسب کار بودن و برای اونا کار نیستن، اونا از این لیاز مشکلات دارند.
In a separate bid to address the crisis, the UN Security Council passed a resolution that exempted donors, aid groups and financial institutions involved in humanitarian assistance from UN asset freezes on leaders of the Taliban and associated entities. The United Nations says nearly 23 million people, about 55% of the total population, are facing extreme levels of hunger, with nearly 9 million at risk of famine as winter takes hold. Afghanistan's economic crisis accelerated after the Taliban seized power in August as the last US troops withdrew. The United States and other donors cut financial assistance, and more than $9 billion in Afghanistan's hard currency assets were frozen. International community's muted response since then has only made the situation more complex, and only after these UN and the US decisions does it appear that there might be a slight improvement in the situation. But calling it a return of normalcy would be nothing short of an overstatement.
Now we take a look at some happenings in Asia in a segment called Asia Watch.
Amid heightened tensions with the United States and Israel over possible Israeli plans to target Iranian nuclear sites, Iran's Revolutionary Guards fire ballistic and cruise missiles during war games in the Gulf, the state TV reported. Iran says its ballistic missiles have a range of up to 2,000 kilometers and are capable of reaching Arch for Israel and US bases in the region. The exercises also included the simultaneous firing of 5 cruise missiles and the launch of armed drones capable of hitting 2 targets each. The 5-day drills concluded on Friday. Tehran has also warned of a crushing response to any move against it by Israel, which opposes efforts by world powers to revive Tehran's 2015 nuclear deal and has long threatened military action if diplomacy fails to prevent it from acquiring a nuclear bomb. Iran says its nuclear ambitions are peaceful. Israel is widely believed to be the only Middle Eastern country with a nuclear arsenal.
India successfully test-fired indigenously developed new generation surface-to-surface ballistic missile Parley from Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Island off its eastern coast. The missile is powered with solid propellant rocket motor and many new technologies, India's Defence Research and Development Organisation DRDO said in a press release. It has a range of 150 to 500 kilometers and can be operated from a mobile launcher. The missile guidance system includes a state-of-the-art navigation system and integrated avionics.
South Korean small business owners held a rally in central Seoul to protest against tighter curbs ahead of holiday season and called for compensation. About 500 business owners gathered in front of government complex and chanted slogans such as "Abolish curbs" and "Compensate loss." They also tore copies of business license on stage and said they cannot afford to follow another curfew anymore. A few days back, authorities announced a series of social distancing measures lasting until at least January 2. They include limiting gatherings to no more than 4 people and forcing restaurants, cafes and bars to close by 9 p.m. The measures came just 6 weeks after highly vaccinated South Korea eased many restrictions to try to live with COVID-19. Since then, daily cases and serious infections have hit record highs, adding to strains on the country's medical system.
Be it organizing a grand event or introducing new innovations, Japan and its companies have never failed to give their best. Recently, Mitla Company introduced Hello Baby program to reduce maternal mortality rate. Apart from this, the Yamaha company has developed a forest monitoring system using unmanned helicopter. Take a look.
Mitla has been providing technical support to medical institutions by developing perinatal electronic medical record system called Hello Baby program.
妊産婦さんの死亡率を下げるということが最大の目標で、それにはですね細かい検査の記録、それから体重であったり血圧の記録をこまめにとって 場合によってはその数字が異常値出た時に、分かりやすく、医師に伝えられる、仕組みを作るということで始めました。インドネシアで、今販売活動しているのが、クラウド型の、電子カルテということで、なぜクラウドにしたかっていうのが、一番はですね、できるだけ安価、安く提供する。実はインドネシアでは死亡率も非常に高い、日本でいうと100倍以上死亡率が高いので、そういったことを考えた時に、インドネシアの人に非常に役に立つんじゃないかというふうに思ったんで、ハローベビーを販売していこうというふうに思いました。
After research and study, the company developed customized perinatal electronic medical record system, Hello Baby program, for Indonesia, so it complies with all requirements by doctors, clinics and hospitals.
インドネシアでは決められたフォーマットがありますので、我々はインドネシア西ジャワ州に対応したフォーマットにカスタマイズして提供しています。
Japan International Cooperation Agency is also supporting the expansion of Hello Baby program in Indonesia to solve high mortality rate of pregnant women, lack of cooperation between hospitals due to the traditional storage of medical records and the problem of medical service disparity between urban and remote areas.
Dan keunggulan yang kita harapkan dari Hello Baby program yaitu dapat memasukkan data pasien secara detail dan lebih mudah dalam menganalisa data statistik yang terkait keadaan pasien. Dan program ini juga memudahkan kinerja klinisi dan mengurangi tentunya human error karena kita dapat menemukan faktor risiko lebih awal dan menangani pasien kita secara lebih komprehensif. Semua ini tentunya dapat meningkatkan kualitas pelayanan kesehatan dan pada akhirnya kita dapat menurunkan angka kematian ibu.
日本のですね、そういった医療を海外で輸出していくというところを単純に電子カルテだけではなくって、そういったオペレーションも含めてですね、他の国にも展開していきたいなと考えています。
Online meetings with local staff are regularly scheduled. Feedback is also received from doctors in Indonesia. Yamaha has developed a forest monitoring system using unmanned helicopter. Equipped with cameras and equipment to measure light reflections, helicopters will help to measure the topography as well as tree density, alignment, numbers and trunk diameters. Unmanned helicopter can measure forest ranging from 100 meters high and up to 100 hectares. Once every 2 seconds, taking picture of the forest directly, the helicopter moves slowly. It enables to take picture whole of forest. It is very useful to fix all the boundaries.
我々はこの30年来使ってきたヘリコプターを使うことによって森の状態を明らかにするための作業というものを今までは人手だったものをこれをヘリコプターのシステムを使うことによって作業の量を軽減してですね、より効率よくまたより正しくデータを入手する。森林の整備につながり、木材を搬出する林業の活性化につながると。国が進めているスマート林業、その方針と合致する、そういった内容になっています。
Digital data will use a combination of photographs to visualize the forest, which include the surface of earth and forest, its density, as well as height difference.
点群データは XYZ の座標を持ったデータの集まりです。ですのでこのように実際に取られた点が森林の形をしているのがよくわかります。こちらで見ていただけるように地表面、木の幹、木の葉っぱの部分、樹幹の部分と高精細に点の集まりを取得することができています。
Even big attention is paid from the perspective of natural disasters in forests and mountains.
防災の観点で言いますと実際、斜面崩壊とかが起こっている場所などもこの上空からの写真では高精細に見ることができますので地滑りや土砂崩れなどが起こっている箇所ということもわかるかと思います。
Yamaha is promoting three-dimensional digital forest monitoring system around the world. It will also contribute to activating forestry and the maintenance of green forest environment.
Moving on, the 40-day period of harsh winter has taken the entire Kashmir Valley of India in its grip. Popularly known as Chillai Kala, this is the time when the temperature drops down to sub-zero and use of traditional items like feran and kangri increases in the valley. So let's go a little deep to know more about the shivering cold phase that has also been inspiring the literature and folk culture of Kashmir for years. The gloomy yet beautiful period of Chillai Kala has knocked the doors of the Kashmir Valley. The water of lakes has started to freeze amid the sub-zero temperature. The mountains are covered by a thick snowpack, plants have frozen and people are heading towards markets to buy the needle-length cloth feran, the traditional fire pot, kagri and dry fruits to protect themselves from the severe cold conditions. Regarded as the most severe part of the winter in Kashmir, this 40-day period begins on December 21st and ends on next year, January 31st. It is then followed by a 20-day Chillai Kurd, a small cold, and a 10-day-long Chillai Bacha, baby cold. While recounting the memories of the past, our famous historian Zarif Ahmad Zarif said that our ancestors started the preparation of this period in advance, and it was not like a calamity for us, but we used to celebrate it.
हमारी माएँ बहनें जो हमारे यहाँ औरतें होती थी वो सितंबर के शुरू से ही सब्जियाँ सुखाते थे। हमारा हर कोई चीज़ 5 महीने 6 महीने के लिए रिज़र्व होता था। हमें ये पहले से ही मालूम होता था हमें कोई अब आने वाला है जिससे हमें मुकाबला करना ज़रूरी होता है, तो इस लिहाज से हम तैयार रहते थे। हम मिडिल क्लास के लोग, अपर क्लास के लोग, मिस्किन जो गरीब लोग हुआ करते थे, सब इसके मुकाबले में अपने अपने महाज पर बराबर चाक चौबंद रहते थे। ये हमारे लिए कोई आफत नहीं थी। जब बर्फ़ पड़ती थी यहाँ, उसी से हमारी सिंचाई होती थी, पानी होता था पीने का, नहरों का, दरियाओं का, पहाड़ जहाँ हमारे होते थे बर्फ़ से, वो समझ ले चांदी जैसे वो पकड़ी बांधी होती थी उनको। हम मॉडर्न ज़माने में हम तो कदरें बदल गई हैं, रिवायात बदल गए हैं, तो इस लिहाज से हम ये सेलिब्रेट करते थे।
To add some excitement to the bone-chilling weather of Chillai Kala, a number of cultural programs are also organized in the valley, wherein the artists electrify the atmosphere with their energetic performances. Moreover, such events give locals a reason to come out of their houses, as otherwise they find it hard to step outdoors.
हम ये दिखाना चाहते हैं कि हम हर मौसम में काम करते हैं। यहाँ का जो आर्टिस्ट है वो अपनी फ़नी सलाहियत जो है उसको लेकर आता है आवाम के सामने और आवाम से जुड़े रहता है। ठीक है, चले कलान है, मुश्किल वक्त है, ठंड बहुत ज़्यादा है, सब चीज़ें हैं, लेकिन इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि आर्टिस्ट कश्मीर का या जो न्यू कमर्स वो बैठ गए हैं। हम उन आर्टिस्टों में वो अपना जोश जो बरकरार रखना चाहते हैं और अपनी आवाम के साथ जुड़े रहना चाहते हैं पूरा साल।
Chillai Kala has also inspired the literature and folk culture of Kashmir for years. It provided a creative impetus to many artists and writers with seemingly mundane subjects of bare trees, frozen rivers and isolated towns and villages. It's time for me to wrap up today's episode. We will be back next week at the same time. This is Yeshi signing off on behalf of the entire production team of South Asia Today. Goodbye and take care.